Um, let's see. The camera's looking. I hope y'all can see this. I've been changing it consistently, but I feel like it's hard to see from how far away my camera is. But today we're gonna be talking about authenticity. Um, this is something I've been wrestling with a lot recently because I feel like and I've always felt this way. I feel like authenticity is very important, and it can be the difference. Its difference is imperative, and it's kind of like a black and white. Like either someone is authentic or they aren't, and it will make the difference. I'll get into it, but first I want to read um, some descriptions I found, kind of match this idea of authenticity. So first, Alex Hormozy said, "Authenticity is when your thoughts, words, and actions." Oh, okay. I missed. Hold on. I wrote down the quote wrong. um, he said, "Authenticity is when your thoughts, your words, and your actions align. And the hardest part is realizing our thoughts are fucked, and we have to fix them instead of faking the next two." And this is what I feel like this is what I feel like I see the most when it comes to authenticity. I feel like people kind of tend to fear who they are on the inside, or who they want to be, or what they think and stuff like that. Like they're not entirely comfortable with themselves, so they kind of force actions and words to seem authentic, but that's not, you can't seem authentic. There's there's a saying in Taoism that goes, there's a lot of different versions of it, but the one I liked the most was "Force forced isn't force." And it's essentially just a double negative, because obviously force doesn't need to be acted out. Force is something of action, so, or something of, a force. And so it's that same thing. It's like authenticity doesn't need to be acted out. It's just something that you either are or you aren't. And then I've got verse 18 in the Tao Te Ching. "When the greatness of Tao is present, action arises from the heart. When the greatness of Tao is absent, action arises from the rules." And I think you could replace Tao with authenticity in this verse, because it's essentially the same description. And Alan Watts touched on this as well in Behold the Spirit. He spoke about how the people who know God the closest are the people who are very like distinct in their character, and they're very authentic, and they're very much themselves. They're not, like they don't care to make God a big part of their life. They just live their life. And so this is that same thing. Like when you're an authentic person, your action will arise from your heart, and you don't need to think about what you're doing or think about your words. Like that's a lot of people say that, do you think before you speak? It's like you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't think like you shouldn't be cruel and mean, and sometimes you will say truthful things. So sometimes it's best to say quiet, because sometimes you'll be upset and you'll say something you don't mean. But for the most part, if you can work on your thoughts and how you process things and how you perceive things, you won't need to worry about your words or your actions, because they'll all be pure, they'll be authentic, they'll be in alignment. And so it's very important too, because the difference is crucial. I mean, Alan Watts said, when a good man when the right man uses the wrong means will work in the right way. And when the wrong man uses the right means will work in the wrong way. And that's why it's so important, is because if you don't if you fake it to any degree, it will eventually crumble. No matter what it is. If it's a job, a relationship, anything. If you fake it to any degree, eventually it's going to crumble. You have to be completely 100% authentic and truthful in your pursuits if you ever want to get them and hold on to them for for time being. And we could look at that, like examples of that in like a relationship, right? When people say they fall out of love, it's like, it's kind of like, well, so if someone's authentic, well, okay, I guess maybe they don't overlap, but authenticity is important for that. Like because if action arises only from the rules, rules are like things like boundaries chosen, you know what I mean? Like you pick the rules you would abide by. And so I think, and that's why rules are dangerous. But when action arises from your heart, it's like you're forced to either become a good person or live with the guilt of being a bad person, because you don't just ignore how you feel, right? So if action arises from the rules, you can say, like, I had to do that. I was forced to do that. Those are just the rules. That's what I have to do. But if action arises from your heart and you do something wrong, it's like, that was my choice. And that's like, I chose to do that. There's a better way to go about it, and I chose to go about it the wrong way. And so, even if you're not perfect, like, just accepting that and working with it is much better than just continuously trying to build on top of it, when you don't have the foundation you need. And then I have a Bible quote as well that says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell, the streams rose, and the wind beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because its foundation is solid." And so in that same way, that is authenticity and truth. And you have to be willing to work with what you've got to bring that to its maximum potential. Otherwise, it will. If you just force something, it's going to fail one way or another. Doesn't matter if it's in 2 weeks or 2 years or 20 years. Eventually, it will crumble because it was not truthful. And I want to try and find some Tao Te Ching quotes that match up to this, because the Tao does that often. Verse 31. Even the finest warrior is defeated when he goes against natural law. By his own hand he is doomed, and all creatures are likely to despise him. One who knows Tao never turns from life's calling. When at home he honors the side of rest. When at war he honors the side of action. Peace and tranquility are what he holds most dear. So he does not obtain weapons, but when their use is unavoidable, he employs them with fortitude and zeal. Do not flaunt your excellence. Do not rejoice over victory. With the loss of others, weep with sorrow and grief. After winning a battle, do not celebrate. Observe the rites of a funeral. One who is bound to action, proud of victory, and delights in the misfortune of others, will never gain. Sorry. Will never gain a thing in this world below heaven. So that one actually did not apply to authenticity at all. So, let's see. And so, if you were to Okay, I like this one actually. Because I think also there is an aspect of authenticity which is kind of scary. Because you begin to just kind of trust yourself in the things you say and the way you act, and just in life, you just begin to trust yourself. And you just kind of move through life with this grace of not worrying too much about the rules, because you know, like, I'm not someone to do somebody wrong or, purposefully do wrong. And so the rules don't necessarily need to apply, because, which is ideal. That's how you would want society to be run, is through honor and grace, not through the rules. So, verse 41. When the best seeker hears of Tao, he strives with great effort to know it. When an average seeker hears of Tao, he thinks of it now and again. When the poorest seeker hears of Tao, he laughs out loud. Tao is always becoming what we need for it to become. If it could not do this, it would not be Tao. There is an old saying: the clear way seems clouded, the straight way seems crooked, the sure way seems unsteady, the greatest power seems weak, the purest white seems tainted, the abundant seems empty, the stable seems shaky, the certain seems false. The great square has no corners, the great vessel is never filled. A beginner may be clumsy, but after practice, what talent! A large drum may sit silent, but when banged, what noise! Tao lies hidden, yet it alone is the glorious light of this world. And I really love, like, I've grown to love this book and its teachings, because it's just so true, but in a way that's like, it's not forcefully true, It's like you don't have to agree with this, you don't have to like this, you don't have to care about this, but it's like, if you did, it would benefit you infinitely. And I love the, like, Tao lies hidden, yet it alone is the glorious light of this world. And I feel like that is, like, the same with, like, authenticity. It's like, you can't always tell who's authentic and who's not, but eventually it will always shine through. Like, eventually you'll always be able to tell, because it's the only thing that wins out. So, it's important. I'll try and find a few more, and then that might be it, honestly. Another short episode. The Laws of Power was extremely long, so I'll see if I can cook up something good for you guys. I've got one on karma coming soon. That'll probably be a long one. But for now, let's see if I can find one or two more. Here, there's one I've really liked recently. It's verse 53. If I had the least bit of wisdom, I could follow the path of Tao quite well. My only fear would be trying to go my own way. The great path is simple and direct, yet people love to take the side routes. See how magnificent the courts have become. The women dress in colorful gowns, the men carry well-crafted swords. Food and drink overflow, wealth and finery abound. Yet, in the shadow of all this splendor, the fields grow barren, the granaries are all but empty. I say this pomp at the expense of others is like the boasting of thieves after a looting. Surely it is contrary to Tao. Surely it cuts against the grain of the whole empire. And this goes to show, like, not goes to show, but this verse really, like, to me, heightens the importance of Tao in the world. Because it's like, I feel like that's why humans kind of go, like, we live in very cyclical lives. And it's because we're not able to just follow the path, which is the one we're on already. Like time has never stopped. Time is the only thing that keeps marching forward. But for some reason, we tend to, like, look back at the past and either try and avoid it or try and continue it. And so we just fall into cyclical natures either way. And surely it's contrary to Tao. Surely it cuts against the grain of the whole empire. It's like, if we could just work and work and work and work at just moving forward. I mean, not that, but like, I don't know. I feel like we care too much. I feel like we care too much. And it's because we care too much about things that we shouldn't, that we fail to see what we really should care about, which is our loved one and our families and the conditions of living for our future generations. And if we just saw what really mattered, which is the well-being of humanity, and we just worked on that and worked and worked and worked and worked, eventually that work would become play. And that work would not, eventually, eventually the nature of society and of the world would be that of like a joyous living, like of Tao, like of it's hard to say. There's no good word for it, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, if we just, if we just didn't celebrate, we would have everything to celebrate for, because we just didn't stop. We just kept going. We didn't boast after looting. We just kept looting. Eventually we had everything. And there was never any need to stop, because we just lived in this wealth of love and Tao and God and, all of the good things. And it's interesting because it's like the thing we want most seems to lie on the other side of giving up hope for ever having that thing. So when you give up hope for becoming what you want to become, and you just do the work that it would take to become that, you seem to instantly become that thing and more, because you kind of just stopped looking ahead and worked with what you had, and just, took one step at a time. So I'll leave you with that. Verse 53. I'm going to read it one more time. If I had the least bit of wisdom, I could follow the path of Tao quite well. My only fear would be trying to go my own way. The great path is simple and direct, yet people love to take the side roads. See how magnificent the courts have become. The women dress in colorful gowns. The men carry well-crafted swords. Food and drink overflow. Wealth and finery abound. Yet in the shadow of all this splendor, the fields grow barren. The granaries are all but empty. I say this pomp at the expense of others is like the boasting of thieves after a looting. Surely it is contrary to Tao. Surely it cuts against the grain of the whole empire. Inauthenticity will be the straw on the camel's back if you're not careful. So I'll leave you with that, guys.